Formula One fans, motorsports fans, it's that time of the month. It's Thursday, July 24th. It's been, 3 weeks since Cars on Track? We're here for it. We're ready. We're going to hook you up with some advice and make sure that you go into the weekend at Spa prepared with your fantasy lineups. Quick recap of last week. Actually, before we get going, some introduction. We can't forget introductions. Some people are new here. If you are new here, my name is Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of GridRival. With me today, I have Ryan Booth, Director of Business Operations, and William Laddie, one of our principal software engineers. We are missing Mike, our CTO, aka Mike GP, aka president of the Lance Stroll fan club. So we will hopefully, he's sick, so hopefully we'll be better and back in action soon. Reminder to like and subscribe to the channel also if you're new here, so that you can make sure you don't miss further shows or further updates. Quickly diving into a recap. Last race was a wild one. If anybody can remember 3 weeks ago, the British GP was full of all sorts of ups and downs. There was weather, there was penalties, there was DNFs, there was Nico Hulkenberg getting on the podium after, 240 race starts without ever being on a podium, something like that. It was an event full of excitement. And oddly, only seven drivers went up in value, 12 dropped in value. We usually do not see that much of a spread. I would say every race, it's usually pretty close to 50-50. There's 9 that went up, 9 that went down, and maybe 2 that stayed flat, or 10 and 9 or something. But a split of 7 and 12 is quite rare. There were a handful of DNFs. But starting at the top of the list, Nico Hulkenberg up 2 million. I feel like we should have made an exception. We should have increased his value by 4. Because, I mean, not only was it an incredible achievement to finally see him on the podium in a Sauber, nonetheless. So if you were lucky enough to have Nico Hulkenberg on your lineup for the British Grand Prix and as a talent driver, you scored 420 points, which has to be some sort of record on our game. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Especially for F1.
He started from the back in a Sauber, and his teammate crashed, and he was on the podium. Like, he checked all of the fantasy boxes pretty much.
For sure. And it didn't feel like a complete fluke to me. You know, he had to hold off some positions. Like, he fought for it. I do not know why that guy has not had an opportunity in a much faster car, but we don't have time for that today. Pierre Gasly up 2 million. Lance Stroll up 2 million. The stroller coaster. As we've said, if you ride on it long enough, eventually it will go back up. Lance Stroll up 2 million after the last race. Albon up 1.7. Hamilton and Behrman up 900K. And then Carlos Sainz up 300K. Fernando Alonso stayed flat. And then you have 12 drivers who all dropped. 5 of them. Last week, I'll just say, last race was a painful one for most GridRival players. I feel like the majority of people probably lost team value. In one of my most competitive leagues, there's about 9 people that are active. I think 8 of us lost team value. So don't feel too bad if you had a lot of red last week. There was 5 drivers who DNF'd and 5 drivers who went down the full 2 million. Colapinto, Lawson, Hadjar, Antonelli, Charles Leclerc down 2 million. George Russell down 1.8 million. Bortoleto, the only driver that DNF'd that didn't drop the full amount, but still 1.6 down. Piastri dropped 1.5. Finishing second, didn't he? I'm not imagining things. Yeah, he finished second place and still dropped 1.5. That's brutal.
Yeah, so we can get into that in a moment.
Okay. Ocon down 900K. Sonoda down 600K. Verstappen down 300K. A very rare forced error from Verstappen last race with the spin out in the water. So anyways, if by chance you missed the British Grand Prix, definitely go back and watch it, because it was one of the more exciting races that we've had in some time. And we are going into a weekend where it is also notorious for weather. As William mentioned before this call started, I believe it was Spa, in which they had to redefine the rules of what a race actually is.
The
last time
infamous
it rained.
2021 race. Like, it used to be 2 laps was an official race, and then they pay like partial points if they can't go further. After 2021, they had to change it to 2 green flag laps because 2021 was, of course, the 2 laps behind the safety car race. And everyone finished where they qualified except Checo crashed on his way to the grid, and everybody behind him moved up a spot.
The crashing on the way to the grid has become quite the occurrence in the last couple of years. We also know that because it's extremely fun on our side to score fantasy
like
leagues.
At this point, we're all yearning for the 90s when they had fully assembled spares. And if you crashed on the way to the grid, you would just rip the seat out of your car and start running to the garage and get in the spare. But we can't do that anymore.
Well, talk about Piastri. Did he have I can't remember. Did he have a time penalty? Why did he drop so much?
Okay, so let's discuss a couple things. The time penalties existence itself, that doesn't impact fantasy scoring.
Right.
So in fact, he still finished second. So the value changes are based on your ranking in fantasy points. Yeah. And we talked about Hulkenberg's historic runs to the podium. He obviously scored the most fantasy points. There were some other backmarkers that had very good days, like Albon, Gasly. So what happens is they move up towards the top of the fantasy point rankings, which is going to displace somebody like a Norris, somebody like a Piastri. So that's what went on there. So he just got pushed down by everybody else having outsized results at the back.
Don't forget about
for that
Stroll.
matter, being seventh.
Right. Hulkenberg first in fantasy points. Stroll second in fantasy points. Gasly third. Then you have Norris and some of the higher race finish positions. So very cool. Let's see. Anything else? Did I forget anything else? Driver salary wise, we forgot constructors. Constructors, you had a little bit of a flip. You had 4 go down, but you had 5 go up. So Aston Martin up 2.2, Red Bull up 1.4, Williams up 700K, McLaren 400K, Ferrari 300K on the losing side. Kick Sauber down 600, Mercedes and Alpine both down 1.1, and VCarb down 2.3.
That's another one that's going to have people scratching their heads. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
So Sauber, like we talked about, Sauber finishing third, and they're down. What gives? Remember, constructors only score based on qualifying position and race finish position, and they both qualified badly. And only one of the Saubers finished the race, so that's only 1 out of 4 boxes checked as far as good results. And so Sauber, fantasy-wise, still at the back in terms of points.
Great explanation. Very helpful. Let's see. Let's get into our tiers for this week. If you're new to the show, the way that we do this is we go through the drivers on the grid in tiers based off of performance, and we kind of debate which ones we think are the picks of choice. And we'll try to answer as much Q&A as possible. So if you do have questions, try and get them in, because we usually do our best to order them in the way that they come in. All right. Kicking things off, we have top tier drivers with only 2 people in it this week. Probably no surprise that it's both of McLaren drivers, Norris and Piastri. Norris at 28.3 million, Piastri at 27.5 million. Ryan, most famously, has now started naming the tiers. So Ryan, give us the name for the papaya tier this week.
Yep, this is the spaghetti and meatballs tier. It's a great 1-2 combination, an elite dish, and these guys are probably going to finish 1-2. The only decision is what order will it be in, but I would be shocked if they are not 1-2. And so spaghetti and meatballs, welcome to Belgium.
There you go. Now, someone just said they can't wait to hear constructor tiers. Did we get constructor tiers this week?
No, I did say on the last show, like it's just between the Indy shows and the F1 shows, it's a lot of tier naming, and I'm already starting to like almost repeat things going through this. It's getting harder and harder. So like, we're gonna leave it for constructors who have to be happy with just drivers for now.
All right. So Lando and Piastri, my opinion is typically, all things being equal, I could go either way on either of these, but Piastri is for sure at a discount. I haven't looked at his salary across the whole season. I'm guessing it's probably close to a low point, if it is not at the lowest it's been, just because it's very, very rare that you have a top driver, dipping $1.5 million, $2 million drivers, $2 million in a single event, unless there's a DNF or something like that. So if I'm having to pick between two of these, I feel like Piastri seems like the obvious choice right now.
And if I can only have one of them, I tend to go cheaper unless we see that Norris is somehow a lot faster. If we want to make the case for Norris, we look at the weather forecast this weekend and we look at what happens in Australia, which was run in mixed conditions at the beginning of the year. Maybe we trust Norris in the rain a little bit more. Then again, we could also look at this. Granted, this is 4 years ago. Spa 2021, Norris absolutely demolished his car in qualifying, which was very wet. So if you trust one more than the other in the weather, you can go that route. Otherwise, if you can only have one, Piastri, I agree, is going to be slightly better value. They are very much in a legitimate championship fight. So they'll both be pushing hard, hopefully not into each other like at Canada.
Yeah, it's honest. This is 50-50. This is a coin flip. I can't predict who's going to be better between Norris and Piastri. I side with Piastri. He is cheaper, as you guys both said. And also, I mean, he probably wins the British Grand Prix without that penalty. It was a very dumb penalty on his part. I don't know why he was getting cute with it, but he probably wins that race without the penalty. So it's not like, oh, Lando's coming in with more pace than him. Yeah, I just think it's just based on price. It's Oscar. But, if you have Lando, I'm not going to drop Lando to sign Oscar. If you have one of these guys on your roster, don't drop them. You just keep them. But if you're looking to sign one, which I would recommend, I think especially with a sprint weekend, you need at least one of these guys on your team to remain competitive. I would go with Piastri just because of price.
Yeah, that's a unanimous agreement, I believe, amongst the three of us. So that doesn't happen that often. All right. I don't think much else to say here. Two drivers here. There's not much of a discussion point, especially when they're both number 1 and 2. Let's move on to number 2. A little more interesting. We have Max Verstappen, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton. At the top of that price range, you have 25.5 for Max. At the bottom, you have Lewis Hamilton at 23.2. Ryan, hit us.
This is the Hulkamania tier. So first off, rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. He gets a tier named after him today. These guys are all strong, just like Hulk. Max and Lewis, bona fide legends, just like the Hulk. And it's a big investment and the wrong choice here. And you could go bankrupt just like he bankrupted Gawker.
He did bankrupt Gawker, didn't he? Oh, wow. That's a good one, man. I feel like you went pretty deep for that. I like that. I like the dedication. I mean, look, anything to me stands out when you have another tier. I mean, George Russell down 1.8, Charles Leclerc down a full $2 million. Let's see, Belgium 2024, Russell DQ'd, Leclerc finished third.
Russell was disqualified from first. He was the first winner disqualified for a technical infringement in 30 years.
Oh,
that was Michael Schumacher, also at Belgium.
Interesting.
He was too light. He did the one stop,
underweight.
right?
Yeah, they one stopped it. I guess they wore too much of the tires off. They came up underweight, and that's what did them in. Which this tier dovetails with Raul's question: is Max worth signing for 5 races or maybe less?
I don't know. I mean, this tier's tough. If I'm betting on who's going to earn the most points over a 5-race average contract, I think that I would be putting it on Max, but the discount to Russell over Max doesn't seem huge to me. Leclerc's 1.1 million less than Max, but still, I mean, Verstappen's just so dominant. So I don't know. This one's a tough one. I think a lot of it's going to come down to what does the rest of your team makeup look like? What spots are you trying to fill in? But
Max for 5 races, it's going to be hard to go wrong there. If we look at the schedule, that would give you Belgium, Hungary, Netherlands is home race, Italy, and then Azerbaijan as the 5th race. And then you have him out for Singapore, which has traditionally been a bad venue for Red Bull. So that 5 might actually be the sweet spot. He'll consistently produce points. My one worry is that Red Bull might be giving up on development on the 2025 car. So if Ferrari keeps pushing, if Mercedes keeps pushing, maybe maybe they start to nip at Max's heels for at that standpoint. Like if you look at the constructor standings, Red Bull is feeling fairly locked into fourth place, being essentially a one-car team, and Mercedes somewhat ahead of them, Williams considerably behind them. So like Red Bull doesn't have a lot of motive to continue developing. So you might start to see Max start to slip off of podium pace in the coming races.
Yeah. I mean, Red Bull should 100% do that too. Max is obviously, I guess, technically out of the championship race, but I don't think there's any way they catch the McLarens. Obviously, the constructors, they have no shot in being a one-car team. And it sounds like, who knows if they're true, but a lot of the rumors swirling seem to be talking about development for next year's car kind of behind pace from some of the other teams.
Particularly
they might have some trouble with Ford. Exactly. There's some trouble with Ford. So I don't know why they wouldn't just punt on the rest of the season. They're not going anywhere. They really should just completely give up on this season. I don't think they will, because I think Max would probably throw a fit, but they really should.
We could also go into conspiracy theory territory here. So the latest rumor around Max's future employment is that if they get through Hungary and he's not top 3 in the driver's standings, he has an out. Maybe he just tanks the next 2 races. Maybe he calls up his brother-in-law Nelson Piquet Jr. for a few tips, if you know what I mean.
Crashgate 2.0.
Yeah, like oops, I slid off in the rain. It's a shame I didn't get any points.
What's Brad Pitt's name in the F1 movie? Sonny what?
Sonny Hayes. I did just see that Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean that whole movie was Crashgate.
It's not as bad as Driven, but you would get run out of the series for half of the stuff that he does in that movie.
For sure. Okay. Ryan, any more comments on this tier?
Let's talk about the rest of the tier.
Yeah, I was going to say, I still think it's Max is probably the top choice here, because I'm going to ride that until I see them start tanking the year, which we are on tank watch, maybe coming after break. I don't think they're going to do it before the break by any means, but I think it's Max just because these prices are so close. And if not, I would probably go down to Leclerc or Hamilton over Russell. I think the Ferraris can bring some pace here. And I'm just not really sold on what Mercedes is going to bring.
They never mind the weight. They brought a pretty fast car to Belgium last year, which Belgium is one of the more special venues. And we saw what he did in that infamous 2021 qualifying. In a Williams, he qualified second. So Russell knows his way around the track. Yeah. And the weather should be cooler. So if it's a heating issue with the Mercedes, I'm less scared. I'm not looking to have him for Hungary, though, where Hungary is a hotter climate, and it is next week. I think I like Russell's second best, actually, after Max. And then probably Hamilton. I like Hamilton better in the wet than I do Leclerc.
Right. And also, if you look at the race last year, obviously he was in a Mercedes, but he was actually pretty much on the same strategy as everyone and just kind of outpaced them all, whereas Russell purely won that on a strategy call.
I think I'd read that Hamilton's never been worse than fourth at Belgium.
Interesting. If we're looking at average points per race this season, Russell's at 154, Verstappen's at 155, but then the other two are quite a bit lower. So you have Leclerc at 140 and then Hamilton at 137. So if that's anything worth considering, I mean, I almost think there's 2 tiers in this bucket, which are Verstappen and Russell and Leclerc and Hamilton. But
we've got Zuck pointing out that Ferrari might be bringing some upgrades as well. We'll see how that works. Just one practice session. And then we also have the weather factor. It's going to be hard to gauge. We're going to have bad weather, and we only have one session.
Yeah, the weather report I looked at said it seemed like it was going to be nice Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was maybe something. But
it's Belgium; it could rain at any time. Spa is one of the more volatile parts of the continent as far as weather, from hour to hour, even.
All right, we ready for tier 3?
Let's do it.
Tier 3, we got Alonso, Hulkenberg, Albon, Gasly. At the top, we have 17.4 million. At the bottom, we have 14.2. This is, well, I'll hold off my commentary. Other than you already used your Hulk analogy So you can't use it again in the Hulkenberg tier, I'm guessing.
Oh, we did. This is
you did.
This is the
Hulkenberg.
Yeah, the Hulkenberg mania tier.
Got it.
I just, after what Nico did, he gets the whole tier named after him. So apologies to Alonso, Albon, Gasly, but I think that Nico deserves this. He deserves the spotlight, so he gets an entire tier named after him. And just like the Incredible Hulk, everyone in this tier is green. We have a lot of upswings from last race.
We put him in a green car. Maybe that's the trick to get him on the podium. He had to get Hulk in a green car.
Exactly. So I couldn't pass it up. I know it's kind of double using it, but we had to give a shout out to the legend Hulk Hogan and then just the legendary performance of Nico Hulkenberg from a couple weeks ago.
Now the question is that where I was going is this tier is typically the ceiling for a lot of drivers. Like we see a lot of drivers get to this tier and then that's where they bounce back. Hajar was in this tier, I think last event. Who else have we seen in here?
This week feels like no exception to what you just said. Like they're all at or above the ceiling.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell Hulkenberg gains value.
Correct. So
I've been saying that for weeks, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I've been wrong on pretty much every show when I keep saying that Hulkenberg is overpriced and I can't touch that type of price in a Sauber. So for what it's worth, I've been wrong on that take maybe 4 or 5 times already this season. And I probably will be wrong on it again when I say the same exact thing when we talk about it now. But yeah, and these guys can't break out because you're going to see some races, right, where one of these guys finishes 5th, 6th, 7th, and it's a really good performance. But they're not consistently going to beat those top 6 guys. And there's also just the fluctuation between us. Is Williams strong this week? Is Haas strong this week? Is Aston strong? They're never the strongest team every single week. So you just kind of see them switch spots around, and they're always going to be behind those top 3 teams.
This tier also has the highest price improvement of any tier. So you have a combined almost 6 million, 5.7 between these 4 drivers. Alonso stayed flat, but Hulk up 2, Gasly up 2, Albon up 1.7. So everywhere across the board, you have a mix of up and down pricing. So the question I think I've seen a couple of people ask in chat is like, is now the time? Do you release any of these guys early, or do you let it ride? Because I'm in agreement for Hulk to go up in value again. I mean, he's gonna have to finish. He's gonna have to finish in fantasy points, obviously 7 or more, which means he'll have to finish a race probably top 5.
And we have a sprint as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna have to show up probably 3 times this weekend to have that kind of result, and they were lucky to show up once in England.
I feel like if you had Hulk on like a multiple races, like if you've had him for 5, 4, 3 races, and you've watched that value climb, I think probably the safe bet is to pull the plug. I mean, you've already made several $1 million on the contract. Like, I think the upside potential of another 2 would be out of this. I mean, that would be crazy. But even for him to increase $1 million or $500,000, it just seems unlikely. But we'll see.
So as far as cutting drivers go, I think I hold Alonso. I think provided he keeps the car in one piece, I think his floor is low enough that whatever you lose it's not going to outweigh the release fee, which gets a little bit steep at 17.4. Like you're looking at a release fee of over $500,000, I think. If I that's right, 3%. It's close to $500,000. Hulkenberg, I'm cutting him. I don't see them repeating the podium performance that they had at Silverstone. Albon, we can hold Albon.
Albon, I feel like is safe. He's been in.
They're fighting for
points.
A while. They're fighting for points every week. And then Gasly, Alpine's a great big wild card. That's the thing about them.
Gasly has the lowest average points per race of this tier by quite a significant margin. So his average has been 109 points. The other guys, Hulk's at 126, Albon 129, Alonso at 117. So just off that, Feels like Gasly's the one to avoid here, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I could even justify cutting him if you like somebody below him better, which I'm thinking, like really with particularly Hulkenberg, Gasly, I wouldn't be signing them this week. I think there are better options in the next tier.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
I've been Gasly has just been a pain in my side all season. I think he's going to show up strong. He has a horrible race. I finally decide to give up on him. Then he looks good, and it's been like a yo-yo. People talk about the stroller coaster. It's been like the Gasly coaster for me, and I've been on the wrong side of it almost every single time. So I think he's probably a little overvalued here at Spa, but you only get one practice session this week, so it's a little tougher to evaluate. If he looks strong, then yeah.
If we get a wet race, that can bring Alpine into it. Like we saw them double podium Brazil last year because the chips fell the right way. Like if we want to speculate, like that's the bow case for Gasly.
Yeah, and old me would advocate for dropping Hulkenberg, but I think after I've been wrong on him so many times, I'm not even allowed to have an opinion on him. So if you've got him, go ahead and keep him. Do whatever you want. You read that market way better than I did. I thought Hulkenberg was a sell for the last 4 races, and that could not have been further from correct. So I'm not even going to bother with a Hulkenberg opinion.
My concern is when I look at this is Hulkenberg's salary.
Hulk to the moon.
Yeah. But it's the same thing as 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, a month ago. Like it was just one of those things. Like I looked at that chart. I looked at everything. I was like, there's no way he can keep doing this in a Sauber, and he's continued to do it in a Sauber. So at this point, I might just have to admit that I've been wrong on it, and we'll see what happens. But I still think if I had to, gun to my head, I would drop him because I just don't see him getting past this talent driver threshold. This is the ceiling that everyone tends to hit, and I don't think Hulkenberg's any different.
Everything had to go just right to get that podium at Silverstone.
Yeah.
Is everything going to go right at Spa? Probably not. Not to mention the sprint race. Like that's just like 3rd versus 19th, which is where Sauber belongs most weeks. That's a difference of what, 16 points. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Hulkenberg's better than 19th, but
like his last 8 races in value were up 600, up 900, up 1.5, down 500, up 2, up 2, up 1.5, up 2. That's crazy. And those last 4, the first, basically with exception of the first race of the season, all of those were all in the bottom half of drivers. The highest was 12th, but the last 4 were from 5th, 8th, 9th, and 3rd. So talking about him, if you were making a bet on him and you're wanting to go up another 1 to 2 million, he's gonna have to finish a race, I think, somewhere between 8th and 5th, and probably have some overtake points, beating teammate points, some improvement points, to see that continue to go.
And a lot of my hesitancy on this tier kind of stems from what we're about to get to, and I think there's just a lot better value in this tier below here.
All right, so let's move on to the 4th tier. We got 5 drivers in the 4th tier. We got Ocon, Antonelli, Sainz, Hadjar, and Behrman, all extremely close in salary to Ryan's point. The top is 13.9. The bottom is 13.2. So they are all very, very tightly grouped. Ryan, what are we calling this tier this week?
The puppies who lost their way. So if anyone's familiar with the movie Billy Madison, this is the question in the showdown near the end of the movie. He gives one of the worst answers you could ever think of about the Industrial Revolution. And he goes, you receive no points. Everyone in this room is dumber for having these guys on their roster, and may God have mercy on all of our souls. But in the end, Billy does win. And I think all of these guys are poised to bounce back. So I think this is a very strong tier.
Yeah, Hadjar obviously had a very similar looking salary chart to Hulkenberg's, which we knew this was bound to happen. Not being in a top car, it was unlikely that he could continue to poke through. He made it to that plateau tier and had a rough go last week, but I would bet on him bouncing back. I'm just looking at average salary. So of this, average points of this tier, Antonelli 124, Hadjar 119, so they're first and second. Ocon's 117, Behrman's 112, Sainz is 109. I mean, so Antonelli is I mean, we're this is based off only 2 metrics, so there's a lot of other things to consider. But Antonelli had a $2 million drop, and Isaac Hadjar a $2 million drop are both great deals.
Yeah. So go ahead, Brian.
Hadjar and Antonelli are just, I think, must signs. And Antonelli probably for 5 races. I think this is probably the lowest we'll see Antonelli at for the rest of the season. I expect him to perform very strong here. I expect Mercedes to continue developing the car, fighting with Ferrari. I don't think they're just going to punt on the season. And especially a lot of the season will be about Antonelli's development, as it sounds like they're keeping him and Russell. So I doubt that they just give up on this. And I think Antonelli in that car is going to be just skyrocketing. He is the best of any driver below the talent driver cutoff right now. I think he will end the season as the 7th highest priced driver. So I want him on my roster as much as possible and double points as much as possible.
And you have him for talent driver at least 3 more races. Hopefully nobody runs into him during those 3 races. That's been a problem. Yes, give me all the Antonelli. By far the best choice here. Hadjar, a decent choice as well. I think the weather is just the one question mark for him as well. We saw what happens with Australia. We can't have a repeat of that. And Hadjar had trouble at West Time Out at Silverstone. So that was the collision with Antonelli, I guess. Yeah, so Hadjar, second best choice. Don't love him quite as much. I think Haas has looked a little bit better recently. We could think about Behrman in particular. Still waiting for Sainz to get closer to Albon in the Williams. That's got to happen sometime, right?
You would think so.
Like, theoretically, Sainz should be worth about $3 million more than he is, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I like Sainz better than Albon this week purely because of he's so much cheaper, and I think they're going to be pretty comparable to each other. Albon's probably slightly better, but I don't think it's reflected in these prices. And Haas is tough, and it's also worth noting Haas almost always unloads terribly in FP1, and then they get better throughout the weekend. You only have FP1 this week until you start getting into point scoring stuff. So that's something to keep an eye on. Do they do that on purpose? Will they correct things? Will they actually unload well in FP1? Who knows? But I will be looking at that. So, and probably just staying away from them just because that's the only practice session this weekend.
Zeroification asking, is Kimi our top pick for talent driver, or is it based on weather? I'm taking Antonelli talent driver no matter what.
Yeah, unless he crashes an FP1, or unless looks like a total tractor. Who actually, Antonelli has not been great in FP1s either this year, but I think you just can't. It's too good of an opportunity to pass up, in my mind.
I'll also
what if he's locked out? What if you can't sign Antonelli?
You're screwed. I maybe Hadjar signs are interesting options, or just my guy Lance Stroll, which we'll get to later, because some people said some pretty outrageous things in some of the previous shows that like Lance Stroll would score points at Silverstone, which he did.
If we're talking talent driver, if you have Alonso, he's another choice if Antonelli's unavailable to you. What I was going to bring up about Antonelli was the last time we had a sprint, that was Miami. He took pole for the sprint, and he did okay in the sprint. So, like, we've seen a good result, and it may be wet. It may end up being wet tomorrow for qualifying, maybe wet on Saturday for the sprint itself. But like, if it is dry, what they do with the tire rules, that does introduce some more variability, like with the sprint qualifying results. So
also, I think I saw
seize on that.
Maybe this has happened before. I don't remember the last time they skipped a compound that they're
going to skip a compound, but
which is weird.
There's going to be an extra step between the hardest and the medium compounds.
Huh.
Yeah, I forgot the exact numbers, so forgive me on that. The chat can roast me, I guess. But if it's like C1, C3, C4, or some combination of them, but they just skipped one of the compounds they brought, which is kind of weird.
Interesting.
Makes me miss the rainbow tires even more.
C10.
Ultra soft, super soft, really
give
soft.
Me the pinks, give me the purples, give me the reds.
Medium, hard, and then 3 levels of soft.
Give me the orange for the hard. Give me the orange ones back that nobody
All right,
used.
we ready for the final tier of drivers?
Yep.
Okay, final tier. We got 5 drivers: Sonoda, Lawson, Stroll, Bortoleto, Calapinto. 11.3 to 7.9 million. Ryan, hit us.
The Wedding Crashers tier. They pretend to be part of a maple syrup conglomerate when they crash the wedding. Syrup, slow as molasses. These guys are the slowest cars. Although one of them will probably crash the points party and finish top 10. And notably, Syrup goes very good on waffles, which we are in Belgium, so it always ties back.
There you go. Wow, look at all those ties. That's incredible. Yeah, this one's tough. I mean, I feel like there's not an obvious standout here. I mean, you can always hop on this roller coaster. That's a ride you can join at any time. You don't have to wait for it to come back around. Yep. But anytime he goes up, it's a little concerning. His average, he is, I will say, tied for the highest average points per tier per race of this tier at 107, tied with Sonoda, who's probably the obvious choice here, but he's also the most expensive. It's $2 million more than Stroll. So are any of you taking a long shot on Stroll?
If I'm in this tier, I can justify signing Stroll. I think Lawson's another driver to consider if Racing Bulls look okay in practice. It's been a little bit rough for them. They had the double retirement, which is why they lost so much value last week. By last week, I mean 3 weeks ago, of course. Yeah, so I think we could sign Lawson. We could sign Stroll. I'm not interested in touching any of the others. Sonoda is slowly learning the Red Bull, but he's nowhere close to max. I don't know if there's a lot of upside there. Colapinto has a hard time keeping the car in one piece, or even not killing the clutch and not starting the race. And Bortoleto is not reliable enough. I take back what I said about taking him in a wet event. Don't do that.
Yeah. Also, Sonoda is. It sounds crazy to say this, but he was really lucky to finish P15. He was probably the slowest car on the track and just got boosted up by everyone else. He was the last classified finisher.
Yeah, he was the last car running. Yeah.
And he was he looked bad, just really bad. I think I'm just off Sonoda as much as, I believed in him in the past. I just don't think he has he just doesn't have the pace, and he's not learning the car fast enough. And I mean, I would rather have Lawson in this tier. I'd rather have Stroll. And then I think you can justify a flyer on Bortoleto, Colapinto, and just, hope that they've got worse improvement indexes. You hope you catch lightning in a bottle. But I think Sonoda might be one of the worst guys in this tier. I'd much rather have Lawson or Stroll.
Here's your bull case for Bortoleto or Colapinto. Let's say somebody like Max or George decides to pull a Spa 98 at the start of the race. Then you just gain 10 spots. So look up the start of the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix if you haven't seen this video. Yeah, I believe it was David Coulthard who bounced off a wall and then collected half the field at the start of the race. But it didn't really matter because most of them had spare cars because this was the 90s and we could do that. No spares anymore. If you pile up half the field, that's it.
No, they got to bring that back. I'm fully in favor of spare cars.
Yeah. And
all
they
these
could
spinning
sort out
on
the
formation lap things, it just takes away from the race.
They want the show, but they want to take cars out of the show. I don't get it. I mean, here's how you get around the power unit rule. You have a fresh power unit in the spare, and the rule is if you have to take your spare, you start from pit lane, and then that power unit becomes yours. We should be with the FIA. We could fix things. We have more common sense than them probably.
Bring back spare cars, V10s.
That
no
too.
reliability rules.
Get rid of the your engine has to last half the season. I want to see blown engines.
Okay, Ryan. Any comments here? What's your standout choice?
I mean, I feel like I just have to go back to the well with Stroll after all I've been saying about him for the last month or so. I do have him on a 5-race contract, so I'm stuck with Stroll for a while. Probably not going to drop him. We'll see if this ride can keep going up to the top. I think Aston Martin has steadily been improving all season. Alonso's looked good. That whole team has just looked better. And I also think Lawrence Stroll isn't one to say, let's punt on this season. I think that they're going to keep using this positive momentum. And yeah, we'll see how Stroll looks. I think he's better. He might be the best at price investment in this tier. Other than it's probably Lawson, but I think Stroll is still a strong play here, and I'm avoiding the other three.
And looking at the constructor points right now, they're sitting 8th, losing the tiebreaker to Racing Bulls. They're only a few points behind Sauber. They have no reason to punt at all. Like if you get a couple of good point days, you can jump to 6th, maybe even challenge Williams for 5th. There's actually a lot of money if they can move up the constructor standings. So yeah, I think these mid-pack teams, like they're going to keep fighting, like probably all the way.
I think Aston should pretty clearly finish this no worse than 6th in the constructor standings, assuming Lance Stroll doesn't do some really serious bad Lance Stroll things, which is entirely possible.
Should we move on to constructors with our time left? We have 4 constructor tiers. In the first tier, there's one team. So do we really need to talk about this tier? This is the McLaren tier.
No, this was really simple.
They run uncontested. So
I'm not signing them this week. I'm signing them for Hungary unless I have infinite money. I'm not signing them this week.
Yes. Like I'd rather want to talk as a quick reminder. I generally tend to think the audience of this show is probably more experienced players, so most people maybe don't need to hear this. But if you by chance you are newer, William, why don't you give us a rundown of why going into a sprint week you might avoid a good constructor?
Yeah. So we were talking about Sauber a bit earlier, and I pointed out that constructors score points on qualifying position and they score points on race position and none of the other things. They do not score points on sprint position. I left that off the list because that is not on the list. So you you're going to get a few more points usually by spending that money on drivers rather than your constructor, because your constructor will not score points based on sprint position. So like once we get past this sprint, then we could look at signing McLaren if we want to just generate points. But otherwise, if you don't have infinite money, I think that money is going to be better deployed elsewhere. And then like next week, we could look at signing McLaren for 5, which takes you through Singapore. I forget if Austin has a sprint this year. Yeah, Austin has a sprint. So then they would actually be out. They would be out for the next sprint. Like if you sign them for Hungary for 5 races, then you actually have them like in between like the sprint weekends, which is beautiful.
That works out perfectly.
Okay, next tier. 3 drivers or 3 teams, constructors: Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull. 26.2 million at the top. Big drop, 22.1 for Mercedes, 20.1 for Red Bull. I think a lot of this is going to come down to what William has said, and I think most of the strategic players are probably, assuming you have a spot open for a constructor, are not going to be filling them with constructors at the top. Now, if you had to choose between one of these 3, I guess that's really the question that we probably should deliver to the listeners. Who do you guys like the most of these 3?
I think Mercedes is the only one that you can roster, although I would avoid all 3 of these like the plague. But if I had to choose one of these 3, it's Mercedes, just because they're $4 million cheaper than Ferrari. I think Ferrari will be better than Mercedes, but $4 million is too big of a gap, and it's never, ever, ever Red Bull. Big never, ever, ever Red Bull. And I did see an interesting, who was it? It was someone in the chat.
If I have Raul, the money to spend.
Yeah, Raul said, I don't know if you guys are thinking about this. He said, will Red Bull underperform without Horner? Are you handicapping Horner into Red Bull at all?
I don't think that's going to impact 2025.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're just about done with 2025, which there was another question. Who's going to score more fantasy points, Red Bull or Racing Bulls? Good question. I'll make the point about this tier first. If I have the money to spend, if I have the extra money, I'm happy with all my drivers, and I can afford a constructor in this tier, it's Mercedes. Ferrari, I think, is near the ceiling.
Yeah,
if they gain value, it's because McLaren had a problem and Ferrari had a good day, and it's hard to say if either of those two is ever going to happen. Yeah, Mercedes seems best. Red Bull's a one-car team. Last time out, they were buoyed by all the people crashing behind them. So, like they were lucky to gain
Ferraris. For what it's worth, Ferraris at their highest price they've been the whole year.
Yeah, near the ceiling. So, well, Red Bull or Racing Bulls score more points. Racing Bulls has a chance. Like if Tsunoda continues to struggle, and if both the Racing Bulls are fighting for points, and like they get to Q3 and then they're fighting for points on race day, there's a chance Racing Bulls outscores Red Bull if Tsunoda is just bad and Verstappen is off the podium again.
Yeah, it's not crazy to think that Verstappen just finishes P5. Very possible.
He did make an unforced error at Silverstone. Like Piastri did the fake out thing, but then Verstappen spun all on his own.
Still finished fifth.
Yeah, still finished fifth, but he's not. He's human just like anyone else. Like he's not perfect.
Okay. Third tier, Aston Martin, V-Carb Williams. Very close, much closer in salary. You have Aston Martin at 14.7, up 2.2 last race. V-Carb 14.6, Williams 13.7. Aston Martin average points this season of 103. Racing Bulls 110. Williams 116. So Williams is your clear value. Just based off those two metrics in here.
The question is, where are they going forward? Like Williams is a team that seems like they're basically done for 2025 and they're looking ahead to next year.
I think it really is going to depend on Sainz figuring out how to, get some more speed.
They faded recently. I think I like Racing Bulls better, and if practice seems okay, like I think I even like Aston better. Like if Stroll's your wild card, but if Stroll is looking at points again like he did at Silverstone, I think Aston's actually still the better choice, even if they're $1 million more than Williams. I don't see as much upside for Williams on pace as we go into the back half of the season. And Racing Bulls is just sort of there, and they're like peeking their nose in the points most weeks.
Yep, I think all three of these are actually decent plays. All three of these are, I think, much better plays than the previous three we talked about, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull. Probably lean Racing Bulls just because I think they are at a little bit of a discount. But if I had Aston Martin or Williams, I'm probably not dropping them unless I really have something you're going to use that money for. But especially with a sprint weekend, you're not trying to go too expensive. And there's really basically everyone's around the same area besides Alpine way at the bottom. I don't think you can go wrong with any three of these, but it's probably V-Carb just based on value.
I don't have anything to add other than it is, well, I was going to say this going into the next year, but I think this is the largest gap that I think we've ever seen in this game's history on the leaderboard between teammates. I mean, typically there's one team that will have 8 positions or 6 or at the most 10 between the two drivers. But this year there's so many of them. I mean, just looking at kick, they're separated by 10 spots. Albon, Sainz not that bad. The two Alpine drivers separated by 9 or 10. Red Bull's just bananas. I think that's the biggest gap we've ever seen in the history of the game. Super interesting. I mean, I'm guessing it has to do with there's so many rookies this year, but just something I noticed when I was looking at our data here. Last tier, any comments on the previous one? Are we done? Ready to move on?
Good.
Last tier, I think we're going to have some discussion points here, being that it is a sprint weekend. We have Haas, Kick, and Alpine. We have Haas at 13.3 million. Sauber at 12.5 and Alpine all the way down at 8.4 million. I'm guessing both of you guys probably like Kick Sauber, given Hulkenberg, but we also know that he's kind of at a ceiling. But talk to me about William. What you're thinking going into this weekend?
Going into this weekend, like I could actually justify a one race flyer on Alpine since they're already last, and like they were skewed last time out by a DNS. Like we had Colapinto not even provide last place points for Alpine as a constructor. We saw them have good results in a wet race last season. Granted, Colapinto wasn't there; he was crashing a Williams that week. So like you could justify Alpine and freeing up more resources for drivers. Like that's actually a viable play. If I'm not taking Alpine, if I've sworn them off, then it gets tougher. Like Sauber, like if they're still showing pace, Sauber might be a way to go, but I think Haas is going to give you more consistency. They were both just outside the points at Silverstone. So like more ceiling with Sauber, but probably a little bit more floor as well. But you could go that route as well. But like I actually don't hate Alpine for a sprint week, and then we go back to a normal weekend format next weekend, and we go a different route. Just be sure that if you one race Alpine, you have somebody else rolling off, or you have enough money in the banks that you can still form a complete team next week, regardless of what the salary movements are.
Yeah, I like one race flyer on a constructor. I mean, if you're going to do it, like there's a little bit, your risk is a little bit divided.
I think Alpine's probably the only team I'm looking at in this tier for exactly the reasons that William provided. If I wanted, I mean, Haas and Kick, at that point, I'll spend the extra $1 million to go up to Racing Bull or Aston Martin, or I guess $1 to $2 extra million. But I think just purely based on sprint weekend and price, Alpine's probably the way to go. And if we do get weird weather and it turns into a strategy race, it's just one of those. It really gives them a lot of upside because either they get the strategy wrong and then they're just running last like they were kind of expected to, or they nail it and they both finish in the points, or you get one good finish out of it and all of a sudden you went up $2 million just with the cheapest constructor. So I think it's Alpine's really the only one down here, and I probably will have them as just one race for this weekend only.
At Brazil, it came down to them staying out when other drivers were going for pit stops to take wet tires, because Alpine realized that if they're putting blue tires on, they're probably red flagging the race within the next lap or two. And F1 lets you change tires during red flags, unlike American Racing Series. So you get like the freest pit stop ever.
And what is it? It's like you always see those memes. It's like if you ever feel useless or unimportant, you could be one of these, and it's like the blue tire. It's like they just don't use them. If it gets that wet, they just red flag it. What's the point? But yeah, it's such a free roll for these back marker teams, because like I said, it's if you make the wrong call, who cares? You're in the same spot. If you make the right call, it's huge upside for you. So I think it's worth it.
Oh, we got Dusty in the chat asking for merch. He's on the merch train. The merch train is back. I think that's it. So we are through everything.
100 million lineups.
100 million lineups. I don't have one. If you have one, go for it. And I'm gonna, while you're going through yours, I'm gonna look through some questions. See if there's anything we missed.
And my Silverstone lineup, by the way, that was good for 810 points. The big loser there was Antonelli, talent driver, and then running into Isaac Hadjar, which that was double whammy for me, triple whammy since Antonelli was my talent driver. Anyway, still 810 points, like 100 million can get you quite a bit. If you're in the Discord, by the way, we do have the hardcore mode beta league that you can join, where there's no salary floor. You can go below 100 million. Everything's a one race contract. You're locked out. So this 100 million lineup is also my hardcore lineup. And that's going to be Piastri, Hamilton, Antonelli talent driver, Sainz, Behrman, and Alpine for 99.7. So I think this is hardcore or not. I think this is my lineup anyway. A consideration if you're going to play with no salary for, I think, is to try and minimize the number of signings that you make where you have a lot of downside. Like Piastri, you're cheaper than Norris. Like downside's a little bit less. Alpine already last. Like it's like unless they crash out, like Hamilton's not going down, Antonelli's not going down. So that's my thinking there. If you're interested in this, hop in the Discord. We've got a link there, and yeah, that's my lineup. And I hope this fares a bit better than the Silverstone lineup. We have had some 100 million lineups that were good for like 900 plus points. So even if you don't have a lot of budget, don't feel like you can't make a good lineup, especially if we're looking at a wet weekend and you get any number of surprise results.
Yeah, and speaking of making your lineup, please remember this locks down before sprint qualifying. So I don't know.
That's right. Lockdown is tomorrow morning.
Yes, make a lineup, and if you don't wake up in time, like make your lineup tonight and wake up tomorrow morning, look at practice results and tweak it. But even if you don't make it up in time, make sure to just set a lineup tonight just in case, because it is a very early start for anyone in the US tomorrow.
Run your banker lap.
Lockdown, yeah, that lockdown will sneak up on you. So I'd highly recommend having a full lineup set tonight, and then look at it tomorrow morning after FP1.
I got full lineups already in all my leagues.
I know you do. I'm just trying to help.
When I'm smart and when I have my act together, I'll usually set like an insurance lineup at the beginning of the week that I'll go and modify just to make sure I have something in their worst case scenario. I think that brings us to the end of the show. William had a good call out. If you're not in Discord, go find our Discord. It's the GridRival Discord. There's, I think, now 8,000 members in there. Great spot to ask questions. There's some pretty active folks in there. So if you haven't found it, go join it. And we will see you back in what?
So next F1 show is next week, Hungarian Grand Prix. Time of the show TBD. And that'll take us into summer break. If you're an IndyCar fan, come on back tomorrow. We're going to preview the Monterey Grand Prix at beautiful Laguna Seca out in California. And that'll be same time, 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, if you're into that. And definitely check that out. IndyCar game's nice and fun, as well as it's the official fantasy game of IndyCar. And we hope to see you then.
All right. Thanks for joining the show. We will see y'all soon. Have a great weekend. All right.